Well, here we go again. Yet another Oswald Did It book. As if we need another Oswald Did It book. It's from a gentleman by the name of Paul Brandus, who has some clout. He might not be a Bugliosi or a Posner, but he's fairly well known. He wrote a somewhat acclaimed book on Jacqueline Kennedy. This Oswald Did It book may or may not get a lot of press, who knows, but the thing that really gets my ire up is one particular theme. This is what he wrote on Amazon. It's books on in pre-order. Brandus writes, the so-called crime of the century, the assassination of President Kennedy, was almost preordained to happen. Like all presidents for decades before him, JFK played it loose with security. Open cars, Secret Service agents at a distance, and a desire to be seen. Yet conspiracy buffs are certain the security setup on November 22nd, 1963 was unusual and suspicious. It wasn't. What a joke.
The City of Dallas police have deployed over 700 men, but unusually, none are guarding Dallas's many high-rise rooftops.
The major trip before in Florida, in Tampa, 28 miles, almost 3 times the length of Dallas. They had multi-story building rooftops guarded with all the sheriff's department, with heavy arms. In fact, I spoke to the lead motorcycle officer in Tampa. He told me, oh, every multi-story building at 28 miles had armed men, and they would have shot anybody untoward during that motorcade.
Got a pretty good crowd of people down here on Turtle Creek.
Halfway down Main Street, FBI Special Agent James Hosty watches the motorcade pass by. He's shocked at how exposed the President and First Lady are. All the Secret Service agents are in the car behind.
When you realize the building rooftops weren't guarded, there's people hanging all out of windows. You realize they weren't on the back of the car in a concentrated fashion. And there wasn't more motorcycles bracketing the car, and even the use of the bubble top. It makes you realize how much Kennedy was a sitting duck.
10-4-1 is a pretty good crowd there.
The motorcade turns off Main Street and enters Dealey Plaza. And they make a short right-hand turn onto Houston Street.
In the presidential car, Jackie hears Governor Connolly's wife say to the president, "You certainly can't say that the people of Dallas haven't given you a nice welcome."
And the president says, no, you sure can't. Then they make the really tight jog onto Elm Street. Now, this was all a violation of Secret Service protocol and common sense. You're never supposed to take the president in a situation where you're slowing the car down like that.
The president's car is now turning onto Elm Street, and it will be only a matter of minutes before he arrives at the trademark. I was on Simmons Freeway earlier, and even the freeway was jam-packed with spectators waiting their chance to see the president.
Here was killed. The Secret Service agents normally walk directly beside the car on either side. We do not see any in this photograph, but usually 2 or 3 Secret Service agents will walk on either side of the car so that they are there to spot anyone who looks like a troublemaker. For firing a shot, it's most unusual, incidentally, that such a thing could happen because of the unusually tight security measures that are ordinarily taken by the Secret Service who guard the president. And normally, any vantage point, a rooftop, and windows which command a parade route are carefully scrutinized and carefully guarded, and men are usually posted on rooftops along a parade route, particularly if there is any reason at all to suppose that there might be someone in the area who would have such ideas as assassination in his mind regarding the president. These precautions, of course, are taken by the Secret Service for all presidents, as they have been for many years.
episode made me angry. It did make me angry. We're talking about the President of the United States. And I'm not a holier-than-thou guy.
And in the 1960s, I believe that we can demonstrate so that all the world will want to follow our example, that freedom and prosperity can move hand in hand. I express our thanks to you, and I can tell
In Mr. Kennedy's new presidential limousine, the two presidents acknowledge the cheers of the throngs. The end of the parade finds the presidential party at the Blair House, the president's official guest house, where the distinct...
Mr. Kennedy की नई limousine से दोनों
through the streets of Berlin began. The entire route was lined with people who had waited hours to see the president, the man dedicated to the defense of peace and freedom. Never before had the Berliners turned out in such large numbers. Never was a reception so rousing.
Und hier also ist einer der dramatischsten Punkte, wo Ost und West sich gegenüberstehen. Wenn Berlin ein Vorposten der freien Welt ist, dann ist der Checkpoint Charlie einer der vorgeschobensten Posten, der am weitesten vorgeschobenen Posten der Soldaten des Präsidenten.
Dort heimkehrende Helden der Nation gefeiert werden. Der Weg John F. Kennedys zum Schöneberger Rathaus wird zu einer einzigen Triumphfahrt. Kennedy hat auf eigenen Wunsch auf den Platz in der Mitte des Wagens verzichtet, um sich gelegentlich wegen seiner Rückenschmerzen seitlich am Wagenrand abstützen zu können. Von den Strapazen der letzten Tage ist ihm jetzt aber nichts anzumerken. General Lucius D. Clay, Initiator der Berliner Luftbrücke, die die Stadt während der 10-monatigen sowjetischen Blockade am Leben hielt und den die Berliner deshalb außerordentlich lieben, der mit dem Präsidenten nach Deutschland gekommen ist. Er sagt zu ihm, bevor dieser Tag zu Ende gegangen ist, werden Sie 90% der Berliner gesehen und kennengelernt haben. Pierre Salinger, Kennedys Pressechef, ein eher hartgesottener Mann, sagt später, dieser Empfang in Berlin ist der größte, der dem Präsidenten irgendwo in der Welt zuteil geworden ist. Am frühen Vormittag hat Kennedy den Gewerkschaftstag der IG Bausteine Erden in der Berliner Kongresshalle besucht. In einer kurzen Ansprache hat er dort betont, freie Gewerkschaften seien eine wichtige Voraussetzung für das Funktionieren der Demokratie. Freiheit aber sei nicht nur ein Ziel, sondern auch ein Mittel und ein Weg für ein besseres Leben aller Menschen auf dieser Erde. Freiheit und ihre Unteilbarkeit ist das Grundmotiv der Rede, die John F. Kennedy vor dem Schöneberger Rathaus halten wird. Sie ist mitbestimmt von den Eindrücken, die er an der Berliner Mauer erhalten hat und die ihn tief bewegt haben. Kennedy sagt, die Mauer sei die abscheulichste und stärkste Demonstration für das Versagen des kommunistischen Systems. Und was für Berlin gelte, das gelte auch für ganz Deutschland. Ein echter Friede in Europa könne nicht gewährleistet werden, solange jedem vierten Deutschen das Recht der freien Wahl vorenthalten werde. War die Ansprache in der Frankfurter Paulskirche die inhaltlich bedeutendste,
America, December 1961. This covers Puerto Rico trip. There you go. There's the bubble top, Agents by the Car.
Where the people make no secret of how warmly they feel about their guests. President Kennedy's destination now, the offices.
And the other was transparent plastic. And these different routes were put together
by laying wreaths at the tombs of two of Mexico's heroes, and then attending Mass at the holiest of that nation's shrines, the Basilica of Guadalupe. They are greeted by the Primate Archbishop of Mexico, Miguel Gomez, who later led a prayer in English for the full success to all efforts made during the President's visit. After Mass, the Kennedys head for the airport and then home to Washington. Last week, there was uncertainty in capital circles about the President's reception in Mexico. It turned out to be one of his greatest triumphs in personal diplomacy.
Friendship with personal warmth and with a personal welcome.
So for the Army, Air Force, and our allies.
That's relaying our TV signal from the mobile camera in the parade route. The police drive by quite frequently, helping the Marines keep the crowd in check. The Marines, by the way, are stationed at 54th and El Cajon, where we have one of the biggest crowds of the route, are stationed about every 5 or 6 feet apart, and they've certainly had their hands full in keeping these people back because everybody's leaning forward, pushing to the front, knowing that the president's about to go by. The band in the background, Crawford High School Band, striking up. hoping that the president will be here any moment and wanting to play some stirring march music for him. May I again point out that the picture you see is not from 54th and El Cajon.
The two press trucks, including a live mobile feed, still in motion photography, and more importantly, Marines facing the crowd 5 to 6 feet apart.
It's from a vantage point about 4 blocks west of where we are, looking west and seeing the first of the motorcade as it goes by. And that's part of the crowd lining the streets, lots of children, the Marines with their hands full. The motorcycle officer, I understand, has been instructed to make sure that everybody does not get out into the street. No reports of whether or not he has run over any toes or not, but doing a good job of keeping them by. Now, the presidential motorcade is approaching 54th and El Cajon. Everybody here is on his feet. The people are beginning to cheer. The people behind me are, of course, quite expectant and quite excited about this occasion. First car coming by our camera at 54th and El Cajon is one of the lead cars on the motorcade. Behind it, the officers on their motorcycles with their red lights blazing.
Waving his arms in the air several times in seeming disgust. There was another last-minute change made at Love Field, invoked by the Secret Service. The Dallas Police Department motorcycle outriders were told not to be beside the car. It went from 4 to 6 down to a measly 2 riders on each side, and to add insult to injury, they were pushed further back in the motorcade by those agents not being by the car, by those motorcycle officers not being in the position. It opened up President Kennedy to a field of fire from in front and from the rear.
In the months before the trip to Texas, there had been a growing number of threats against the president's life.
Despite the increase in conspiratorial activity in the month of November 1963, in the apparent red alert the Secret Service appears to be under in response to this activity, the agency acts in the opposite fashion and actually reduces the security and acts like no threats on the president's life are occurring. Why?
Uniquely on that day in Dallas, the press, the camera crews, Kennedy's military aide, who would normally sit in the front of the president's car, and even his personal physician were all relegated to the rear of the motorcade by the Secret Service.
In a conventional motorcade, the president would be somewhere in the middle, surrounded by security and the press. In this case, the presidential limousine was set right out in front of every other limousine, which of course is the reason why the Secret Service destroyed the records of its own motorcades when they were asked for them by the Assassination Records Review Board.
The most suspicious behavior by shift leader Emery Roberts was to be at the time of the shooting in Dealey Plaza.
Tragically, he actually ordered the agents not to move during the heart of the shooting. Agent Sam Kinney, who drove the follow-up car, admitted as much to me and told me, quote, exactly right, end quote. And all these deficiencies begin and end with the Secret Service, because they were the prime movers. They were the ones who were directing the security arrangements from Washington up to and including in the heart of Dallas during security meetings. They were the ones that gave out assignments, vetoed or approved of security arrangements, so the buck stops with them.
Agents who usually surround the limousine were pulled away so people could see the president better. One reacted by throwing up his hands in disgust. 3 times he protested, what would prove to be a fatal error. Kennedy was killed by the 3rd shot from a sniper rifle, well after agents, if they had been nearby. Agents who usually surround the limousine were pulled away so people could see the president better. One reacted by throwing up his hands in disgust. 3 times he protested, what would prove to be a fatal error. Kennedy was killed by the 3rd shot from a sniper rifle, well after agents, if they had been nearby.
I interviewed a guy called Clint Hill, who was the bodyguard. If you see the footage of the cavalcade and the bullets coming, he's the guy that jumps on the back. He was Jackie Kennedy's bodyguard.
Why weren't Secret Service on the bumper that day? They were removed. You can go on internet.
That's not what he told me.
They were removed from the bumper.
That's
and the
not
Secret Service guy turns to his boss and goes, "What?"
Jesse, here's my point.
And they took him off the bumper. Why did they change the way that for Dallas only, the way the motorcycles were lined up. They put 4 of them way in front and the others all behind. They didn't go in the standard wedge, which was used in the 2 previous days before. But in Dallas, that changed. They got them out of the way to give a clear shooting lane.
Let me finish.
I spoke to the special agent in charge of the White House detail, the #1 agent, Gerald Bain. I asked him, President Kennedy, I understand he was difficult to protect, right? He didn't want the agents on the back of the car, and he told me, this is the exact quote, I don't remember Kennedy ever saying anything about not having agents on the back of the car. If you look at the newsreels, you'll see agents on there. Well, one by one, I spoke to many of his colleagues, not only in the Secret Service, but actually White House aides that were not Secret Service agents, and it was a landslide. They were all telling me the same thing.
Supposedly Kennedy ordered the agents on the back of the limousine. No, he had nothing to do with that. The record of history, that is false.
President Kennedy, very nice man, not difficult to protect, did not order the agents off the back of the car.
This complete departure from procedure is captured here as the motorcade begins to leave Love Field Airport in Dallas.
Jogging beside the car was an agent. In the fob car behind him, another agent rises from his seat and does hand gestures like this, obviously to order him to cease and desist. The agent stops in his tracks 3 times, not once, not twice, but 3 times, goes like this. And actually, that's the universal body language for what is going on. Turns out the agent name was Don Lawton, and he's the agent who's formerly told to cease and desist by shift leader Emory Roberts, who rises in his seat with the hand gestures, and you see Don Lawton going like this. Don Lawton rode on the back of the car on the Chicago trip earlier in 1963 and 4 days before in Tampa. But he's relegated to meaningless Love Field luggage duty during the motorcade, during the assassination. It's ridiculous.
Secret Service agent Clint Hill is also recalled from his position on the opposite side of the limousine. Emory Roberts had been the only one of 3 Secret Service shift leaders from the White House that was part of the motorcade.
Emory Roberts was in charge of the follow-up car that was immediately behind JFK, full of Secret Service agents. He was the general, so to speak, of the follow-up car. If he said something, that's how it went.
Emory Roberts, however, received his orders from Floyd Boring, the #2 man of the Secret Service White House detail, based in Washington.
Floyd Boring, he was in charge of planning the Texas trip, and he was the one who gave out assignments.
In an interview with the Assassination Records Review Board in 1996, he stated that there had been no change in policy for the Dallas trip. Even more alarming is what happened inside the Secret Service car directly behind the president's limousine once shots rang out. Shift leader Emory Roberts would give an order to the other agents in the car.
When the assassination begins, he orders the men not to move. Sam Kinney, the driver of the fob car, who's right beside him, confirmed to me that this happened. He ordered the men not to move at the beginning of the assassination.
Emory Roberts supposedly ordered the men not to move. That's exactly right.
These men were sworn to protect the president, to dive in front of a bullet if need be, to sacrifice their body. And you mean to tell me this man is going to order them to cease and desist when the shooting begins?
And just what were the Secret Service agents who were actually inside the president's limousine doing at the time of the shooting?
Agents Bill Greer and Roy Kellerman were pivotal to the success of the assassination, and they were pivotal to the success of the assassination through inaction. Bill Greer was the driver of the president's limousine in Dallas. Roy Kellerman was riding right beside him. Greer hits the gas pedal, Kennedy lives. First shot rings out. Bill Greer looks back at the president. His foot's on the brake too because the car slows down. It's only going 11.2 miles an hour. It's crawling at this point. And then Roy Kellerman says, get out of line, we've been hit. That's when Bill Greer turns around a second time and is staring at Kennedy and doesn't do anything until Kennedy is killed. Yes, it was only 6 to 8 seconds, depending on estimates, but that is a lifetime for a Secret Service agent. Count down 6 to 8 seconds and watch the video of Reagan being shot. These men, by the time the 8-second shot, they're well out of there. Let alone 2, 3, 5 seconds. Amazing what they did. And Roy Kellerman, for his part, doesn't jump. He doesn't jump back. He's turned around. He's staring at Kennedy too.
The shooting had stopped by the time Clint Hill, who was assigned to protect the First Lady, finally leapt onto the limousine. Could these monumental lapses by the Secret Service just have been a series of unfortunate oversights?
How convenient that this all happened on the day allegedly a lone assassin struck the president down. 1963 protocol, President Kennedy should have lived in Dallas. He should have lived past the Dallas motorcade. But Floyd Boring, in charge of protection of the president by planning the Texas trip, Emory Roberts in charge of the follow-up car, and Bill Greer, the driver of the president's car. Those three men bear the largest burden of what went down in Dallas. The buck stops with the Secret Service. Yeah.
Here was killed. The Secret Service agents normally walk directly beside the car on either side. We do not see any in this photograph, but usually 2 or 3 Secret Service agents will walk on either side of the car so that they are there to spot anyone who looks like a troublemaker.
This complete departure from procedure is captured here as the motorcade begins to leave Love Field Airport in Dallas.
jogging beside the car was an agent. In the follow-up car behind him, another agent rises from his seat and does hand gestures like this, obviously to order him to cease and desist. The agent stops in his tracks 3 times, not once, not twice, but 3 times, goes like this. And actually, that's the universal body language for what is going on. Turns out the agent name was Don Lawton, and he's the agent who's formerly told to cease and desist by shift leader Emery Roberts, who rises in his seat with the hand gestures, and you see Don Lawton going like this. Don Lawton rode on the back of the car on the Chicago trip earlier in 1963 and 4 days before in Tampa. But he's relegated to meaningless love field luggage duty during the motorcade, during the assassination. It's ridiculous.
You know what I mean? Well, I know that, but you still have regrets, remorse, whatever. Who knows if they left guys on the back of the car and stuff. You never know. You second guess. You can hindsight yourself to death. You know what I mean? Well, I know that, but you still have regrets, remorse, whatever. Who knows if they left guys on the back of the car and stuff. You never know. You second guess. You can hindsight yourself to death.
That's the important stuff.
Yes, I think so. He had me as a person he talked to, and I never talked with him. He had Floyd Boring as a person he talked to, and Floyd didn't talk to him. So, I don't know where a lot of the information came from, but he had a lot of references on it. But I thought the book was right on the mark. He knew about the stop in Tampa and the president's request. And
but you never sat with him.
No, no, I don't know how he got a hold of that. And Floyd, he gave me a very full report for the book, and Floyd said he didn't talk with him. He doesn't know where the information came from. Yes, I think so. He had me as a person he talked to, and I never talked with him. He had Floyd Boring as a person he talked to, and Floyd didn't talk to him. So, I don't know where a lot of the information came from, but he had a lot of references on it. But I thought the book was right on the mark. He knew about the stop in Tampa and the president's request, and
you never sat with him.
No, no, I don't know how he got a hold of that. And Floyd, he gave me a very full report for the book, and Floyd said he didn't talk with him. He doesn't know where the information came from.
Blaine is partly correct. Floyd Boring did not. He was not interviewed by William Manchester, as the source notes reveal, and Floyd Boring was adamant to me he was never interviewed by Manchester, and Floyd Boring adamantly denied what was attributed to him in the book was even true. Floyd Boring said that was not true. President Kennedy never ordered the agents off the car. That whole Ivy League charlatans comment was bullshit. And what other bullshit is Gerald Blaine was interviewed for this book. He's lying now. Gerald S. Blaine was interviewed. He admitted to me in 2005 he was interviewed for the book. I wonder why he's denying it now. Could it be because he is the originator of the JFK ordered us off the back of the car Ivy League charlatans bullshit? Could be.
I think I'm going to have them ride on the back end of the president's car because we just don't have the manpower to do anything else but that. All of a sudden I hear over the radio the president wants the Ivy League charlatans to fall back to the follow-up car.
Gerald Blaine told Vince Palamara that he heard this remark from the guys, not over his radio. He told Vince Palamara that President Kennedy never interfered with their actions at all.
Floyd Boring, the agent you see in the passenger seat of the limousine next to the driver, Bill Greer, that's Floyd Boring. He was assistant special agent in charge. He told Vince Palamara that this was not true. JFK was a very nice man, never interfered with their actions at all. He never ordered them off the back of the car. I specifically asked him about the Ivy League charlatans remark. It's in William Manchester's book. Floyd Boring adamantly denied this to me twice. He also sent me a letter saying that President Kennedy was very cooperative. The same thing he told the JFK Library in 1976. Don Lawton, the agent you're seeing about to get on the back of the car there, told me that, who knows, you can hindsight yourself to death. If they would have left guys in the back of the car, Special Agent in Charge Jerry Bain and a slew of other agents told me that President Kennedy never ordered the agents off the back of the car. Gerald Blaine, author of the Kennedy Detail, told me the same thing until he realized, uh-oh, we got to cover our behinds.
And he politely told everybody, we're starting the campaign now, and the people are my asset. Said I couldn't get elected dog catcher.
Blaine took that from Floyd Boring's JFK Library oral history in a different context that was not related to the agents being on the back of the car, which is totally untrue. See the gentleman next to JFK there? That is Congressman Sam Gibbons. He told me the agents were on the back of the car the entire time. He heard no presidential order to remove the agents from the back of the car. President Kennedy had back braces and a very bad back. He couldn't have turned around to see the agents. He wouldn't have cared one way or the other. And the agents were actually back far enough, they weren't an issue anyway.
If I didn't get out and greet the public, we all of a sudden understood, but it left a firm command to stay off the back of the car.
That left a firm command to stay off the back of the car? Bull. Again, Gerald Blaine in 2004 told me that President Kennedy never interfered with their actions. In 2005, when I told him, where'd the Ivy League charlatans comment come from? He said, it came from the guys. I can't remember who told me. I can't remember. Now he's saying he heard loud and clear over his walkie-talkie. Yet Floyd Boring told me it's not true. Gerald Blaine was interviewed by William Manchester, something he is now denying. I feel strongly that Gerald Blaine is the source that's in Manchester's book of this Ivy League charlatans mythology. President Kennedy never ordered the agents off the back of the car.
The president is also keen to give the crowds the best view possible, so asks the Secret Service agents not to stand on the back of the car.
Basically, he didn't want to look like he was overprotected. So we had a shortage of agents, and then he emphasized it that he didn't want agents on the back of the car.
This is total bull. Gerald Blaine spotting this total mythology, this total false crap. There's no other way to put it. Not only did Gerald Blaine told me twice in 2004 and 2005 that President Kennedy never interfered with their actions at all, many of his colleagues, including several way above him in rank, the number 1 agent, Gerald Bain, the number 2 agent, Floyd Boring, one of the 3 shift leaders, Art Godfrey, dozens of others, and several important White House aides, including Dave Powers, all told me that President Kennedy did not order the agents off the back of the car. Dave Powers, arguably JFK's best friend since 1946, wrote to me in a letter saying that the president never had to order the agents off the car. The list goes on and on. See my first book, Survivor's Guilt, and also see my third book, The Not So Secret Service. It's a shame that Gerald Blaine is still spreading these lies.
Did you have any occasion to speak to Mr. Manchester? Oh, okay. I wasn't involved in that at all. I had been on the trip before, February, the last vacation he had. Oh, okay, the one in Florida. That's right. Oh, okay, yeah. There's something relating in his book about that too. Supposedly, he makes it out like President Kennedy was real authoritarian and ordered the men off the back of a limousine. Well, that's not true. I didn't think that was either. Yeah, Rufus Youngblood, it was one of the things he told me. He says that don't believe Manchester or Bishop. It's very disheartening for being a young researcher looking at books and trying to sift out what's fact and what's not. And as years, this is all becoming history now. It's very discouraging to find certain things that are printed aren't true. Right. And you gentlemen were there, and you would know best. And when you were saying that, I believe you 10 times more than I would, William Manchester. Yeah, no, well, you were there, that's the problem. But, the most alarming thing about this is, sir, is he quotes you in the book, but you're not interviewed in the book in the back section. Oh, yeah, he says that supposedly President Kennedy told you, I'm quoting, keep those Ivy League charlatans off the back of the car. That doesn't sound like, okay. Boy, I tell you, this is amazing. I didn't think so either, because he was gracious enough to indicate all his interviews at the back section of the book, but your name wasn't there. How can he get a direct quote from a gentleman he never spoke to? I never told him that. Yeah. You know, I'm finding this out because in this less than 5 minutes of conversation, you've knocked out a lot of stuff that's printed. I was not taking it as the gospel, but I know other people have. I can't tell you how many times I've seen it repeated where President Kennedy told the agents, I guess yourself and other people, get these men off my limousine, don't do this. Okay. Very nice man. Yeah, it's never improvement at all. One of the other things I found out interestingly enough is there's no truth to this thing about supposedly Kennedy ordered the agents off the back of the limousine. No, he had nothing to do with that. I figured that, because you know what? William Manchester makes the claim that Floyd Boring was ordered by Kennedy, and I'm quoting what it says in the book, it says, keep those Ivy League charlatans off the back of my car. That is false. Yes, I found that out, and I talked to William Manchester, who lives in Connecticut, about that, and he got real defensive with me. He says, all those notes are under seal, and I'm not allowing anyone, especially yourself, to look at these rules. Who was this you were talking to? William Manchester. Oh, okay, I talked to William Manchester. He called me on the book. Yeah, that book is just filled with things. That is for the record of history, that is false, because Jerry Bain knew him very well. You're getting back. I don't know anybody now. They're all gone. I've been retired so long that people came and asked me as retired. Okay, yeah. And Jerry Bain was a very good friend. Matter of fact, he was my boss at the White House. And Floyd Boring, he's still alive. Jerry Bain passed away last year, I believe. And Floyd Boring and JFK got along perfect. Yeah, I can't believe it. You know what I'm saying? The tremendous damage these books have done, because what happened was, after the Warren Commission, everybody was waiting, I guess, during the 60s for the Manchester and Bishop books. And when people read them, they figured, hey, it must be true, it's in print. And ever since that time, people have been using those as source books, if you notice the bibliographies. And unfortunately, I can't tell you how many times that those myths have been repeated about Secret Service tension with JFK, and also the thing about the agents on the limo. And yeah, now I've got more confirmation on it. There has never been, in my history, any more rapport with the President of the United States other than possibly Harry S. Truman. Yeah, that's another one they said. Harry S. Truman was a jewel just like John F. Kennedy was. Yeah, they said the only thing that caused... I don't really have too much faith in that. No, it's bad. Oh, believe me, I'm not just putting any stock into it. Just any read, you can't put a hell of a lot of stock. I'm finding that out. I tell you what, Sam, let's get that point. This is true. No, and I tell you what, I get people that argue with me about this. Oh, come on, Kennedy was one of the most tough to protect presidents. He always ordered the men off the back of the limo, and now I'm finding out that's not true. You know, because they say they make a big play about supposedly Ford. Kennedy was one of the easiest ones to ever protect, and this is why most I would say 99% of the agents, and I'd even like to go 100, but I like to leave leeway, like to, you know, leave room for the higher score. Right. He was one of the best presidents ever to control. Okay. He trusted every one of them. Boy, I think this is amazing. That I guess William Manchester got away with this at the time because he was such a highly touted journalist, and he had sort of that Kennedy authorization to do this book, and it just escalated from there. Exactly. Yes.
With us is Vince Palamara, Secret Service expert and author, Honest Answers about the murder of President John F. Kennedy. A new look at the JFK assassination coming in March 2021.
Vince, you have broken major parts of what happened around the Kennedy assassination.
I spoke to the head of the White House detail, Gerald Bain. I asked him, you know, I've read these books, and supposedly President Kennedy ordered the agents off the back of the car. He cut me off because I don't remember Kennedy ever saying anything about not having agents on the back of the car. If you look at the newsreels, you'll see agents on there from time to time. I was floored, and I just couldn't believe this is the head of the White House detail. This wasn't just some buck private.
Yeah, definitely. Take the one from Kennedy and say that he didn't want anybody on the back of the car. Yeah, definitely. Take the one from Kennedy and say that he didn't want anybody on the back of the car. Kennedy and say that he didn't want anybody on the back of the car. See, that's exactly what I was saying. The one more.
This is the lead advanced agent for Dallas, Winston Lawson. Keep in mind, the lead advanced agent for Dallas, Winston Lawson. This is an amazing letter he wrote me in January 12th, 2004. I do not know of any standing orders for the agents to stay off the back of the car. After all, foothold and handholds were built into that particular vehicle. I am sure it would have been on a case-by-case basis depending on the event, intelligence, threats, etc. Keep in mind, ostensibly, officially, allegedly, there were no threats found in Dallas. Jerry Bain, a special agent in charge of the White House detail, as it was known then, Presidential Protective Division currently, would have been privy to that type of info more than I. See my other video where Bain adamantly denies that President Kennedy ever ordered the agents off the car. However, it never came to my attention as such. I am certain that agents were on the back on certain occasions. Again, I do not know of any standing orders for the agents to stay off the back of the car. However, it never came to my attention as such. This totally debunks the Kennedy detail. Here's the fateful Tampa motorcade of November 18th, 1963. This is Congressman Sam Gibbons. There's JFK, Senator Smathers, Agent Don Lawton, Agent Chuck Zaboril, Agent Floyd Boring, Agent Bill Greer. Let's focus on Congressman Gibbons. What did Congressman Gibbons have to say about the whole notion of JFK allegedly ordering the agents off the car in Tampa? Here's what he told me in this letter dated January 15th, 2004, years before the Kennedy detail saw the light of day. I rode with Kennedy every time he rode. I heard no such order. As I remember it, the agents rode on the rear bumper all the way. Kennedy was very happy during his visit to Tampa. Sam Gibbons. This is an amazing letter from Dave Powers, arguably JFK's best friend for years and the former curator of the JFK Library. September 10th, 1993. Okay. Also, unless they were running along beside the limo, the Secret Service rode in a car behind the president, so no, they never had to be told to get off the limo. Also, unless they were running along beside the limo, the Secret Service rode in a car behind the president, so no, they never had to be told to get off the limo. That destroys the Kennedy detail right there, and the whole notion of the O'Donnell Powers staff notion too. This is a fantastic book written by Helen O'Donnell called A Common Good, The Friendship of Robert F. Kennedy and Kenneth P. O'Donnell. There's Kenny O'Donnell. There's Helen O'Donnell, his daughter. This book, much of the material in this book has been gathered from the private tapes of my father, Kenneth P. O'Donnell. Okay, so she has her vivid memory in the private audio tapes of my father, Kenneth P. O'Donnell. When I wrote to her, really sweet lady, Dear Vince, thank you for your friend requesting your note, blah, 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 blah. Suffice to say that you are correct. JFK did not order anybody off the car. He never interfered with my dad's direction on the Secret Service, and this is much backed up my dad's tapes. JFK did not order anybody off the car. He never interfered with my dad's direction on the Secret Service, and that is much backed up in my dad's tapes. I think and know from the tapes, Dallas always haunted him, meaning O'Donnell, because of the might-have-beens. But they involved the motorcade route. He constantly questioned his own decision to take the motorcade in that direction, but he never blamed the Secret Service. The important thing, JFK did not order anybody off the car. This is much backed up in my dad's tapes. Kenny O'Donnell, you've been vindicated. The Kennedy detail, that book by Gerald Blaine, the Kennedy detail has been thoroughly debunked. This is Assistant Special Agent in Charge number 3 Agent Roy Kellerman, ostensibly the agent in charge of the Texas trip. Ostensibly, but it was really Floyd Boring. Roy Kellerman died in March 1984. Here's his widow, who, by the way, passed away in 2006. This is what she said to me in 1997 in a letter. I spoke to her a couple times, too. Dear Mr. Palamara, the answer to your question is no. Roy did not say that JFK was difficult to protect.
This is a man named Vince Palamara. Do you know him?
I'm familiar with him. I don't know him.
He says that, I guess, we'll talk about this, that he sent you a 22-page letter.
I recall receiving a letter which I sent back to him. I didn't bother with it.
You didn't talk to him ever?
He called me and I said hello, but that was about it.
Yeah, Clint Hill is claiming that he returned my letter and he didn't bother with it. Okay? Lisa McCubbin, the co-author of Gerald Blaine's book, The Kennedy Detail, claimed on Facebook that he threw it in the garbage. Perhaps the biggest contradiction of all is Gerald Blaine was quoting from the letter to me when I spoke to the gentleman on June 10th, 2005. So we got 3 different stories. Clint Hill's claiming here that he returned it to me. He did not return it to me. I received his signed receipt that he received it. He did not return it. Lisa McCubbin is claiming that he threw it away without reading it. And the evidence that indicts them the most is Gerald Blaine quoted from the letter to me, again, on June 10th, 2005.
And this man's name is Vince Palamara. He's a citizen who has taken it on his own to become an expert. He's from Pennsylvania, and I don't know him. I've never talked to him. I've just seen it on the web. And he is, I believe he's a graduate of Duquesne University. So let's watch this, and I'll get your reaction to it.
Hi, this is Vince Palamara, the self-described Secret Service expert that Jerry Blaine accuses me of without naming me, okay? Back with my obsession about the Kennedy detail. I gotta read this. This is rich. Page 287. This is what Blaine's claiming Raleigh said. Raleigh turned to Jerry Blaine, and Jerry, since you were in the lead car, did you ever hear this over your radio as well? Yes, sir, I did. I heard exactly what Floyd just told you. The thing about this is the whole thing about the Ivy League charlatans thing. Jerry Blaine told me the Ivy League charlatans thing came from the guys. I can't remember who said it. Boy, his memory got real good 5 years later, because now he's claiming he heard it over the radio, Floyd Boring, okay? Just unbelievable. It's just amazing to me, you know? There never would have been a book if I didn't send a 22-page letter, okay, to Clint Hill that pissed him off so much that his very good friend Jerry Blaine came out with this book as a counter, okay? There's some nice things I recommend everybody to buy. I don't mind the censorship. This is my First Amendment rights, okay? It's got some nice pictures, some nice non-assassination things, and there's even some good assassination-related things in here. But it's very obvious. It's other people picked up on it. That's why there's some really bad reviews on Amazon right now. Mine's the best of the bunch at 3 stars, too. It's very obvious it's a thinly veiled attempt to rewrite history and to blame President Kennedy without trying to blame him for his own assassination.
First of all, his is not the best of the reviews. There are 7 with 5 stars, just in case for the record, that I saw today when I looked on Amazon. What's your reaction? Could you hear?
Well, he wrote an assessment of the book about the first time about 5 weeks before it was released. The second time on Amazon.com, he and 4 of his friends or 4 of his aliases put a statement on assessing the book a 1, a 2, and a 3. My assessment of Mr. Palamara is that he called probably all of the agents, and what agent who answers a phone is going to answer a question, was President Kennedy easy to protect? Well, probably he was too easy to protect because he was assassinated. But the fact that the agents aren't going to tell him anything, and he alludes to the fact that when I wrote the book, most of these people were dead. Well, I worked with these people. I knew them like brothers, and I knew exactly what was going on. And I always respected Jim Rowley because he stood up to the issue and said, look, we can't say the president invited himself to be killed, so let's squash this. So that was the word throughout the Secret Service.
This is rich. Gerald Blaine is saying, my assessment of Mr. Palamara is that he called probably all the agents, which is true. And what agent who answers the phone is going to answer a question, was President Kennedy easy to protect? You did, Mr. Blaine. February 7th, 2004 and June 10th, 2005 to be exact. And many of your colleagues echoed the same thing. That JFK was a very nice man, never interfered with the actions of the Secret Service, and did not order the agents off the limousine. Picking up where Blaine left off. Well, he probably was too easy to protect because he was assassinated. Jeez, that's really nice to know, Mr. Blaine. Again, a quote from Blaine here. But the fact that the agents aren't going to tell him anything, you told me a whole bunch of things in our 45-minute conversations, plural, times 2, on those dates I mentioned. And many of your colleagues told me much of value. And he alludes to the fact that when I wrote the book, most of these people were dead. Yes, it's very relevant. Again, back to Blaine. Well, I work with these people. I knew them like brothers, and I knew exactly what was going on, and always respected Jim Raleigh because he stood up to the issue and said, look, we can't say the president invited himself to be killed, so let's squash this. 47 years later in Blaine's book, as I've covered in my Citizens for Truth and Kennedy Assassination online reviews and my blogs and whatnot, he's claiming in his book that there was a morning of JFK's funeral meeting of the Secret Service that Chief Riley said, look, we know the president ordered us off the back of the car, but we can't let the public know about this because then they'll think we're blaming the president for his own death. We got to cover this up. Ironically, by telling this sordid tale, that's exactly what the book achieves. It does blame Kennedy for his own death by revealing this meeting. I do not believe this meeting took place at all. I think it's a total fabrication. There is no evidence for it whatsoever. That's just my opinion, based on the fact that there's a lack of evidence. It's very slick, though, because there probably was a security meeting to discuss the upcoming walk to St. Matthew's Cathedral with Jacqueline Kennedy, Haile Selassie, Charles de Gaulle, and all the dignitaries. But the bottom line is everyone he's mentioning that attended this alleged meeting are long dead. There's no corroboration. And furthermore, the agents that spoke to me or wrote to me provided substantive details that go against this alleged meeting. The advance agents supposedly were told. No, they weren't. Winston Lawson told me in a letter, a complete stranger. Why would he lie? Said, I don't know of any standing orders for the agents to be up the back of the car. It never came to my attention as such. It never came to his attention as such. According to Jerry Blaine's book, there was a meeting.
Mr. Palamara, there are a number of things that have happened, but he has no credibility. He's a self-described expert in his area, which I don't know what it is. He was born after the assassination, and he keeps creating solutions to the assassination until they're proven wrong. So he's...
Yeah, like your attorney sending me a certified letter asking me to take down a blog where you guys were alleging I was saying that I was a co-author of the book. I wasn't saying that at all. I even noted it came from Lisa McCubben's blog. I was just advertising the book. But that was a shot across the bow, wasn't it, Mr. Blaine, to try to put a scare in me. Didn't work. The truth shall prevail. I know what you said. I know what all your friends said. I have letters of them. I have some of them on audio tape. It is what it is, to use the common vernacular. And a quote from your book where you say that I stabbed your brothers in the back with baseless accusations. Hey, don't kill the messenger for giving you bad news. These gentlemen, including yourself, told me what they told me to a complete stranger on the phone, and or they wrote it, put it in writing. I mean, the consensus is overwhelming. It's a landslide that JFK did not order the agents off the back of the car, nor did he interfere with the actions of the Secret Service. You were a private in the Secret Service. Jerry Bain was the Douglas MacArthur of the Secret Service, #1 agent. His #2 assistant, Floyd Boring, also said the same thing. Kennedy never ordered the agents off the back of the car. So that's where I stand on the matter. He also says that he has no credibility. Well, we'll be the judge of that, won't we? He says he is a self-described expert in this area, which I don't know what it is. Well, self-described people as diverse as Vince Bugliosi, the History Channel, the Assassination Records Review Board, and even ironically Brian Lamb have called me a Secret Service expert. I mean, it is what it is. He was born after the assassination. Okay, and so was your co-author Lisa McCubben. And your point is?
He alleges that because he sent me a letter, 22 pages in length apparently, and that I discussed that with Jerry. I forgot that I ever got a 22-page letter from this particular individual until I heard him say it on TV. And I never discussed it with Jerry or anybody else because it wasn't important to me. And insofar as him being an expert, I don't know where the expert part came from. I spent a long time in the Secret Service in protection, and I'm not an expert, but apparently he became an expert somewhere up in Pennsylvania. I don't know where. People claim that they're experts. They have no basis to make that claim. I was a special agent in charge of Vice President Protection, special agent in charge of Presidential Protection, and Assistant Director of Protective Forces for the United States Secret Service. I'm not an expert, but apparently some of these people out there who write these books and concoct these theories are experts.
People as diverse as Vince Bugliosi, the History Channel, the Assassination Record Review Board, and even ironically Brian Lamb have called me a Secret Service expert. I mean, it is what it is.
The fellow we talked about in the last interview, Vince Palamara, you've seen his letter? No, he's been critical of...
Well, I'll accept his
Are you
endorsement.
worried that he's being...
Well, maybe he has some secret agenda, I don't know.
The most painful theories point fingers at the agents themselves.
I read where Pontius was part of it because he disappeared after Houston. A conspiracy for the agents to shoot the president. I mean, this is off the wall.
The Zapruder film, when the Zapruder film is run at normal speed, another theme that Palamara throws out is that Bill Greer stopped the car. When it's run at its normal speed, you'll notice the car absolutely does not stop at all. This happened in less than 6 seconds after the president was hit in the throat and moving along. Then all of a sudden everybody broke down the Zapruder film to frame by frame, slowed it down, and they created a myth to almost every frame of what was going on. And you'll notice too that when Mrs. Kennedy comes over after the first shot, she is directly in front of the president's face. And people have accused Bill Greer of pulling a gun out and shooting the president. He'd have had to shoot through the Conleys and he'd have had to shoot Mrs. Kennedy. And the same thing holds for anybody on the grassy knoll. Had they fired, they'd have probably injured Mrs. Kennedy in it too. These are the myths that come about. People create a myth or a theory, but they forget all the other facts that are going on.
Okay, Jerry Blaine saying, when the Zapruder film was run at normal speed, another theme that Palamara throws out is that Bill Greer stopped the car. When it's run at normal speed, you will notice the car absolutely does not stop at all. Well, a couple things I have to say about that. Close to 60 witnesses, including 7 Secret Service agents and Jacqueline Kennedy, said the car either slowed down or stopped. Don't kill the messenger for giving the bad news. All these men and women said what they said, wrote what they wrote. Okay, they were all eyewitnesses. They were there, Jerry. You weren't. You were in Austin, okay? They said the car slowed down and stopped, or just slowed down. Not that they all said it stopped. And as far as it not showing in the Zapruder film, well, Louis Alvarez and other people studied the film, and actually you could see the car slow down. And the major issue is a lot of people think the Zapruder film was tampered with. I don't mean the crazy theories where it was a total cartoon nonsense like that, but frames were removed. All those witnesses, and now the Zapruder film doesn't show a dramatic slowdown like all those witnesses claimed there were. No one's buying it. Who had access to the Zapruder film? Who owned it at first? The Secret Service. Says it all. In this comment you make, this happened in less than six seconds after the president was hit in the throat and moving along. Oh, the president was hit in the throat, huh? In the throat. From the front? What's the deal with that? You know what it is? I don't know. You guys just can't get your story straight. You can't get your facts straight. At least if you guys are going to counter someone on the other side like me, be well prepared. That's embarrassing. Well, good luck making your money off the man that you were sworn to protect. Have a nice day.
The most painful theories point fingers at the agents themselves.
I read where Pontius was part of it because he disappeared after Houston. A conspiracy for the agents to shoot the president. I mean, this is off the wall.
One of the agents shot him, and all the crap. Everybody's having a field day.
One of the conspiracy theories is that the agents left the president's car unguarded just before the shots were fired.
The motorcade had finished the crowd portion of the route and was about to hit the Stemmons Freeway, Therefore, going freeway speed, no agents were on the back of the car and would not ever be on the back of the car in those conditions.
This thing about the freeway, they were going too fast, that's bunk, because there's many trips where the agents were on the back of the car at very fast speeds.
Well, he can tell you what he wants done, and he can tell you certain things, but that doesn't mean you have to do it. And what we used to do was always agree with the president, and then we do what we thought was best anyway.
You have to realize that I have a lot of opponents out here as far as the book goes. I've interrupted a few theories that were hanging out there, so I'm not getting all favorable readings on it. As a matter of fact, 3 weeks before the book came out, I had a #1 rating from about 4 different people about the book, so they had no idea what was in the book. But I'm not all the way very popular. But But I think what helps more than anything is to let the people know from the agent's perspective. And we realized that we weren't violating the Secret Service code. We were violating our fellow agents who had passed on, and that's what we wanted to bring out. Stories. And then Art Godfrey was dying of cancer, and I talked with Art Godfrey. He was my shed later. He gave its blessings, and then
we were going down this Elm Street with my door open. I heard at least 2 shots.
It appears as though something has happened in the motorcade route. Something, I repeat, has happened in the motorcade route.
I saw Youngblood jump in the back seat with the vice president. It turned out he had jumped on the vice president and pushed him down to the seat and floorboard as much as he could to, get him below the level of the car so that he'd be more protected. Of course, I'd already heard the 3rd shot, and when I first looked out to the right, I saw people dropping to the ground up on this grassy knoll there, and the sound came from the right, and I just assumed that that's where the shooting was taking place from that location.
Leapt into history that day, but he could not get there fast enough. When I got up on the car, Mrs. Kennedy then came up on the trunk. I got a hold of her and put her in the back seat. When I did that, he fell into her lap, but the right side of his face was up. I could see his eyes were fixed. I could see into the skull. There was a hole in his skull. And you could see that part of the brain was gone. It wasn't even there. So I just turned and gave a thumbs down to the follow-up car crew because I thought it was a fatal wound. He was dead.
Agent Lawson would climb into this white unmarked police car for the trip through Dallas.
Presidential limousine followed the car I was in.
The president's car is now turning onto Elm Street.
The president's limousine enters Dealey Plaza right in front of the school book depository.
The main crowds were about God.
Suddenly, a distinct crack fills the air.
It was rifle shots, yes.
It appears as though something has happened in the motorcade route. Something, I repeat, has happened in the motorcade route.
I jumped out of the car and went back to his car.
Win Lawson would be the first person who burst through the doors at Parkland.
The president was hit in the head.
Agent Lawson returns to the president's limo with 2 stretchers and witnesses the grisly scene.
Someone put a suit coat over his head.
Wynn helps lift the gravely wounded president out of the back seat.
And then we were able to get him out, put him on a gurney.
Wynn stands shoulder to shoulder with the First Lady as they watch doctors and nurses try frantically to save her 46-year-old husband's life in Trauma Room 1.
They really didn't do an awful lot. There was an awful lot they could do. This part of his head right here. This part of his head right here.
Last Monday marked the 30th anniversary
of the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. Next, we take you to the campus of Southern Methodist University for a conference on what journalists remember of that fateful day. Panels include journalists who were in Dallas on November 22nd, 1963, as they discuss efforts by radio, television, and newspapers to stay on top of the story.
Before this thing developed, the Kennedy arrival, we assigned responsibilities to certain photographers. I personally had the president as my responsibility while he was in Dallas. We had, of course, other people at certain locations. I was to get the arrival at Love Field and the parade and the luncheon. Those were my responsibility. And it is important that the president's pictures were my responsibility. So at Love, everything went fine up to the point that the whole day became great frustration for a photographic person. First thing, parades were usually handled with a flatbed truck for pool and certain selected photographic personnel to ride in front of the presidential car on presidential parades. That was canceled at the last minute. We were put in Chevrolet convertibles to ride several cars back. I think we were about 6 cars, Bob Jackson and I, and a couple of other boys were in this parade. And that put us totally out of the picture.
It's scattered. I think you were one of the people who was somewhat annoyed in the position that the press car was put in so far in the back.
Oh, quite. I was disappointed because it was customary. It had been customary in the past to put a flatbed truck in front of the president for a more or less pooled and selected newsmen. And Bob and I had been selected among other people. But at the last minute, they decided not to have that truck in case they wanted to get out fast. Figured it might be in the way.
Right. Do you remember who selected? Who did the
No, I surely don't. I imagine it was one of the Secret Service people.
This is approximately where the car was in this position when I heard the first shot. And when I heard the first shot fired, I turned to my left and looked up at the building. I knew it came from over my head and from that building. And then I turned back around, and there was 2 shots rapidly, and I saw that Kennedy was hit.
And there was more time between the first and second shot?
Oh, yes. The first shot, and there was a pause, and then there was bam, bam.
Make a decision with, and I saw the president grab his neck. And then by that time, there was 2 falling shots, just like a pow, pow. There was 2 falling shots, just like a pow, pow.
You hear all the stories about how many shots there were. Bang, bang, bang. And they bang, bang, bang. And they bang, bang, bang. And they bang, bang, bang.
Mr. Barrows, how many shots did you hear?
There were 3 shots, and these were spaced with 1 shot, then a pause, and then 2 shots in very close order, such as perhaps...
Barrows, how many shots did you hear?
There were 3 shots, and these were spaced with 1 shot, then a pause, and then 2 shots in very close order, such as perhaps almost on top of each other, while there was some pause between the first and the second shots.
Did you tell that to the Dallas police?
Yes, I told this to the police, and then also told it to the FBI, and also I had a discussion 2 or 3 days later with him concerning this, and they made no comment other than the fact that when I stated I felt like the second and third shots could not have been fired from the same rifle, they reminded me that I wasn't an expert, and I had to agree. Is this the exact spot you were standing on November 22nd, Mr. Holland?
That's correct. This is the exact spot that I was standing November the 22nd.
As an eyewitness interview with a Mrs. Jean Hill. Here is the interview.
What is your name, ma'am?
Jean Hill.
From Dallas?
That's right.
And did you see the shooting, miss?
Yes, sir.
Can you describe what happened?
Yes, sir.
Will you do that now?
They were driving along, and we were the only people in this area on our side, and the shots came from directly across the street from us. And just as the president's car became directly even with us, we took one look at him, and about that time, 2 shots rang out just as he looked up. Just as the president looked up, and these 2 shots rang out, and he grabbed his chest, and it looked like he was in pain, and he fell over in the seat, and Jackie fell over on him, and said, "My God, he's been shot." After that, more shots rang out, and the car sped away.
Now, what kind of a car was that?
What kind of a car was it? The president.
I mean, where did the shots come from?
The shots came from the hill.
From the hill?
Yes. And it was just east of the underpass.
And
we were on the south side.
Did you look up there where the shots came from, ma'am?
Yes, sir.
Could you see anyone?
I thought I saw this man running, but I looked at the president, and for a while, and I looked up there, and I thought I saw a man running, and so right after that, I guess I didn't have any better sense. I started running up there too.
The president looked up, and just as he looked up, 2 shots rang out, and he grabbed his chest, and this real odd look came over his face, and he pitched forward onto her lap. And she jumped up over him at that and screamed and said, "My God, he's been shot." And there was just an instantaneous, sort of an instant's pause, and in the motorcade it momentarily halted, and 3 or 4 more shots rang out, and they sped away real quickly.
There was 3 or 4 real close together, and it was must have been the first one that shot him, because that was the time I took the picture. And during that time, after I took the picture and the shots were still being fired, I decided I'd better get on the ground.
Did people lie down on the ground?
I just know.
It's the end of a long first day for Secret Service agent Roy Kellerman. With his charges secure in Suite 850 of the Hotel Texas, he clocks off. But as Kellerman heads to bed, many of his agents head to the bar.
9 agents drank the night before the assassination. That's grounds for removal from the agency. If they only would have left the front and rear pieces on, and even had that open piece in the middle, that would have been a security function. It's a psychological deterrent because so many people wrongly assumed it was bulletproof when an assassin or assassins even try with it on.
but they get him away at last. Back to
común determinación para preservarla y extender sus frutos a todos.
el carro del presidente y el gobernador, seguido por un carro de capota abierta en el cual irán miembros de la policía secreta de la seguridad del presidente. En el tercer carro, también de capota transparente, la señora Kennedy y la señora Muñoz. Está preparándose para salir la caravana desde el aeropuerto. Todavía no se ha movido el primer carro, que es el que lleva al presidente. Después de estos primeros carros irán los demás con los miembros de la comitiva presidencial, y los carros que ustedes habrán de ver por el camino, y algunos de ustedes van a ver aquí en la televisión antes de terminar esta transmisión, son de fotógrafos y camarógrafos, tanto local como de Estados Unidos, que han llegado y están cubriendo todo este desfile, toda esta llegada del presidente Kennedy. Irán tomando vistas a todo lo largo de la avenida Valdoriotti hasta San Juan. Ahí va el auto del presidente y el gobernador saliendo de la pista del lado norte del aeropuerto.
Yep. Oh yeah, this is President Kennedy. Daddy took the picture of Kennedy. He went back, he passed so fast. It's one of these. Daddy, which one is Kennedy? Is that him? Right there, there.
To San Diego, Mr. President. The President just said thank you very much as we welcomed him personally to San Diego. And he's going to see a large part of San Diego, a large part of the population of San Diego as he proceeds out El Cajon Boulevard to State College, an estimated 250,000 persons. Hi, Lionel. And the motorcade proceeds, followed by Secret Service agents.
Get it? I think so. Good.
A total of about a dozen automobiles. Directly behind the president's car is an automobile with Secret Service agents. And behind that is a compact which has in it some of the top newsmen, including Merriman Smith of the United Press, the senior White House correspondent, who says, thank you, Mr. President, to wind up the press conference. Other dignitaries, state officials, mayor, zipping right by here, and soon they will be getting out on El Cajon Boulevard. When the motorcade leaves the field here, it'll swing south on Pacific Highway, past the Convair plant and the airport terminal, over on Palm Avenue and onto the new Crosstown Freeway, connecting with Cabrillo Freeway, then north to Washington Street and over to El Cajon Boulevard.
The presidential motorcade driving right down the center of the street in our picture. He has not yet arrived at 52nd and El Cajon, where our first stationary camera is located. We hope to have a much steadier picture from the stationary camera, naturally, because it'll be mounted square right on the sidewalk. That's a shot of the helicopter flying over. This, if I'm not incorrect, is one of the helicopters that's relaying our TV signal from the mobile camera in the parade route. The police drive by quite frequently, helping the Marines keep the crowd in check. The Marines, by the way, are stationed at 54th and El Cajon, where we have one of the biggest crowds of the route, are stationed about every 5 or 6 feet apart, and they've certainly had their hands full in keeping these people back because everybody's leaning forward, pushing to the front, knowing that the president's about to go by. The band in the background, Crawford High School Band, striking up, hoping that the president will be here any moment and wanting to play some stirring march music for him. May I again point out that the picture you see is not from 54th and El Cajon. It's from a vantage point about 4 blocks west of where we are, looking west and seeing the first of the motorcade as it goes by. And that's part of the crowd lining the streets, lots of children, the Marines with their hands full. The motorcycle officer, I understand, has been instructed to make sure that everybody does not get out into the street. No reports of whether or not he has run over any toes or not, but doing a good job of keeping them by. Now, the presidential motorcade is approaching 54th and El Cajon. Everybody here is on his feet. The people are beginning to cheer. The people behind me are, of course, quite expectant and quite excited about this occasion. First car coming by our camera at 54th and El Cajon is one of the lead cars on the motorcade. Behind it, the officers on their motorcycles with their red lights blazing. They can see them now, and a cheer is going up from 54 and El Cajon. They're yelling, they're waving. They've all got signs, it seems, and they're all waving their signs. The president looks fit. He's got a great big smile. He's waving to all of the people along, waving to our camera right now, getting a tremendous ovation from the crowd. He looks fine. He's got a big smile on his face. Governor Brown in the car with him, along with Lionel Van Deerlin, Senator Claire Engel. In the second car, Glenn Anderson, Attorney General Stanley Mosk, Assemblyman Jim Mills, various White House guests.
He will be brought directly past helicopter number 1, which is his helicopter to be used when he flies to the Marine Corps Recruit Depot. At this point, he will be greeted by Dr. Love, the Chancellor of the State Colleges, Dr. Dumke, the trustees of the State College system. There we can see now, through our glasses, the familiar automobile which you have seen through the course of our parade, with the President Kennedy, Governor Brown, and there's Senator Engel. There are the 3 of them. And the President looking, still talking to the people in the car. Now, there comes the familiar smile, standing up, and the brush of that hair off his...
For all his alleged aloofness, he enjoys the rude demands of politics and can even take an irreverent delight in its time-honored rituals.
District Attorney Henry Wade, who convicted Ruby of murder and who would have tried Oswald, there are only a few loopholes in the Warren Commission report. Perhaps the biggest, the single or magic bullet theory.
Some would say that to believe the Warren Commission report, you have to believe this magic bullet theory. The fact that the bullet may have gone through Kennedy and then through Connolly, then struck him in his arm and then struck him through the thigh. Do you think that magic bullet theory is a correct one?
I doubt whether that's correct, but I have no way of proving otherwise.
People said that the shots came from up and indicated toward the freight yard back in that area. I ran across the street and helped a motorcycle officer, I don't know who it was, a motorcycle officer over the fence, and then he pulled me over the fence. He went to the south back toward the U.S. Post Office there, the terminal annex there for the post office, and I went back to the north into the freight yard searching for anybody that may be trying to leave the scene.